Lassiter Factor.
What's up, all my movie-loving maniacs? It's your boy Bankful B of the Lassiter Factor, and today I'm going to talk about Mickey 17, which was recently released in theaters, so let's review. So Mickey 17 is about Mickey Barnes, who gets to go on this space expedition to his other planet to colonize it, but he also signs up to be expendable, in which he basically signs up to die multiple times, but they print his body over and over again and have his memories uploaded. His body gets reprinted 16 times, and then by the time he gets to 17, he ends up basically meeting Mickey 18, which is illegal to have multiple different versions of yourself. That's all I'm going to tell you of the plot because there is a little bit more than just that, though, but I'm going to let you go into the movie a bit cold, but still know that information going in. Now, this movie is directed by Bong Joon-ho, who I remember back in 2019, he won an Oscar for his Parasite, which I do remember loving. It was one of the biggest movies at the time, and the fact that it was a movie that was as deeply themed as it was, won an Oscar. It was huge at the time, especially for Bong Joon-ho. I've seen some of his other films, such as Snowpiercer, which I do remember watching on Netflix like way back when it first came out. But generally speaking, I wasn't really too big on that movie. I might revisit it someday just to see how I feel about it, and especially knowing that Bong Joon-ho, which I did learn recently that he did make. Generally speaking, Parasite was the movie that pushed Bong Joon-ho to the forefront as a filmmaker to know. Up until a few months ago, I kept hearing talks about this movie like Mickey 17, Mickey 17. Everybody wanted to see it. It was getting like high regard in terms of audience interest. And then I found out about Bong Joon-ho directing this, to which I remember, oh yeah, he made Parasite. And then I saw the trailer in the theater. I'm like, you know what? I think I'll go check that out. Now, how do I feel about Mickey 17? I liked it, but didn't quite loved it. But at the same time, I do admire the ambition and the filmmaking in this film. Like, however you feel about this movie, whether it's positive or negative, you must praise Bong Joon-ho's filmmaking in this movie. And I did learn that this movie is based on a book. So I'd say he adapted this book as good as he can get it. In fact, adapting this book with Bong Joon-ho's style and filmmaking sensibilities just elevates this movie. But I say the first two acts of this movie is the strongest parts of this movie. The third act I felt was the weakest point because the first two acts is basically when we meet Mickey, and then we basically see his history of going through all the different versions of himself, though we don't get to see all of them, and I wish the movie had taken just a little bit more time with that. But it's the fact of, we getting introduced to this world, we getting introduced to Mickey and seeing how the printing process works and him going through it multiple times. I felt that was more engaging. Then he eventually meets Mickey 18, and then they have to deal with that. Robert Pattinson continues to prove why we should forget about Twilight. He is great in this. He just gets better and better with each movie. And in fact, I admire Robert Pattinson for being able to get away from the stigma of being part of the Twilight franchise and proving like, oh shit, he is a legit good actor. And the fact that he had to play two different versions of himself just drives that point even more. And then he also does a good job at conveying like, yeah, dying over and over sucks because essentially you're being abused because of the fact that you are expendable. Naomi Aki, who I just saw last summer in Blink Twice, but of course she was in The Rise of Skywalker, and then she was in the Whitney Houston movie from a few years ago, and seeing her in this movie, I'd say this is probably one of my favorite performances of her because like, of course she's vulnerable, but at the same time, she gets to be more of a badass in a sense, and she gets to do a little bit more than she's done in her previous work. Steven Yeun, who we just heard a bunch of in the latest episode of Invincible, is also great within this film. Though we don't get to see much of him or know much of his character, but we just know that he's connected to Robert Pattinson's character within the movie. Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette, they are completely in a different another movie tone-wise because they are basically, it's like, I say this all the time, it's like everyone else is here, but Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette, they're like all the way over there in terms of the tone of this movie. And one thing you're going to hear a lot of in reviews of this movie is that Mark Ruffalo, he is a dictator that is basically a parody of Donald Trump. And you're not wrong, but at the same time, I mean, there's a trend coming within movies going forward in which you have a political figure in a movie and they're just a parody of Donald Trump. But regardless, Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette, they did excellent with the material they were given within this movie. I admire the sci-fi elements within this film. In fact, I do admire the fact that this is a different kind of sci-fi film in which everybody's complaining about there's not enough originality or next to no originality in Hollywood these days. I mean, you have an original movie here. Granted, it's based on a book, but it's still original, and it's different from what you would kind of expect from a sci-fi movie. I just wish the third act was as strong, if not stronger, than the first two acts. But it still doesn't change the fact that I loved exploring this world and spending time with these characters. And like I said, it was different for a sci-fi movie. I'm gonna give Mickey 17 not a full thumbs up emoji, but just a very, very close thumbs up emoji. Thank y'all so much for watching. Have you seen Mickey 17? If so, let me know what you think of the film in the comment section below. This is your boy Bankful B of the Lassiter Factor. Stay safe, wash your hands, peace.